Good evening and welcome to General Council, July 23rd. Identification of media. I don't see any. Before we get started, let's take a moment of deep reflection to remember and pay respect to those that we have recently lost. Can we take a moment, please? Thank you. Let's go to number 3, adoption of the agenda. If there's no additions or deletions, have a motion.
I think we need to bring the hiring of a staff person, the chief hiring a staff person into the open meeting. There's no names mentioned or nothing, so it's not gonna hurt.
Go ahead, Nathan.
Just a point for council's consideration on that decision. Normally, staffing decisions aren't brought into open. I said, just for the consideration of council, normally staffing matters aren't brought into open session.
Which one are you talking about, Helen? It's up to council, but Nathan said they're normally not, so what does council want? Put it on the floor? Is there a mover to put it on the open? Moved by Helen, is there a seconder? Second by Dale. All in favor? Anybody opposed? I have 1, 2, 3. Is that it? 3. It goes into open. Moved. So number 4 will be in the open. No other changes. Could I have a mover to accept the agenda? Moved by Audrey, second by Dale. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Number 4, delegations. And number 1, go ahead, Audrey.
Thank you, Chief Phil. I'd like to ask Krista to come up and stand close to me, please. Okay. I'd like to welcome Krista. Jonathan here tonight to let her know how proud we are of her and to acknowledge her accomplishments. Her name is Yoda Galu, and it means she floats along the water. She's worked in BC as well as the Northwest Territories and some of the First Nations she worked at. Just bear with me when I say them. New Chattanooga, Gawakee, Wak, Helsik, Simshan, Wichin, I knew Valeniwit. That's probably close enough as I'll get. She's also traveled since 2012 since Miss Six Nations, and she's gone to 50 countries, and she's gone to all continents in the world. So even that is worth. Her mother is here with us tonight. Her name is Yvonne Bomberry. And also, father is Chris Jonathan. And they're my cousins, and I'm so very, very proud of them, especially you, Krista. And it was my pleasure when I was at the vice principal. I had a short stint at the school that Krista attends, and my role was to go there and to basically bring some order to the classroom. And she was there, and we got to see each other every day, but she wasn't the one that needed to have the order. So I knew she was going someplace. She now is a doctor, so her name is Dr. Yogalanu Jonathan, and she's a Mohawk Bear Clan. She graduated from UBC Indigenous Family Medicine Residency Program. After completing her MD, master's and bachelor degrees in sociology at McMaster, she moved away from home to work in the rural and remote Indigenous communities all over BC and the Northwest Territories. During her residency, she was the principal lead resident of UBC's family medicine program, the leader of the largest family medicine residency program in Canada. She also represented the Indigenous communities, and we thank the nations and the communities that have welcomed her into their territory during her residency. And those were all those First Nations that I tried to read off. During her first few years of practice, Dr. Jonathan plans on continuing to work in these communities as a rural generalist while continuing to travel around the world, meeting and being an auntie to her many nieces and nephews. And we're so proud of you, and congratulations on becoming a doctor. We might as well go around, start here and go around and see everyone. Yeah. Let me get a picture, Chris. Where's Jody when you need him? Very nice.
And again, congratulations. Great job, doctor. Amazing, and so proud of you. Your hard work. Okay, let's go to number 2, Lee Thompson, Community Events Coordinator, to update about the Stanley Cup.
I sent a video, so hopefully you can play that video for council so they can see what it looks like over there now. It's all set up and ready to go, waiting for Brandon now. And then the streets are all lined and decorated. Right? It's nice. I sent 3 of them. Yes.
So while they get it going, you want to just start updating?
Okay. So we're gonna have our volunteers are gonna arrive at 7:30. And they're instructed to go to Seneca Road and 4th line to Lawrence Jonathan Laneway. And our seniors have been asked to show up at 11, same route. At Lawrence Jonathan Laneway, it's gonna be controlled and manned by Parks and Rec staff. They're going to also, the youth are going to be there at 11:30. They're gonna give them bracelets and they're gonna enter the arena. Parking's in the back. Beside the community hall is gonna be a drop-off area for those who can't fit in a golf cart and be carted up to the doors beside the community hall and the dojo. That's the entrance that our youth and our elders will use. Once they're in the arena seated, the seniors will be waiting. Then we'll get a notification that Brendan's en route. He's at the corner. We'll start lining up the elders, removing the chairs, and the youth will be right behind them. And then if there's room in there after the youth, then they'll open up the back bay doors and then we can file in some more. So when Brandon arrives, he'll enter in the main entrance of the arena that you can see there. And he'll go along the ball diamond and around to the main entrance, and then he'll stop. And then Stan Jonathan has been asked to greet him at the door. He's accepted. And then he'll walk in, he'll go to the stage, and then the elders will start the procession. Or sorry, let me back up. There'll be the opening, and we'll have a youth do that. And then there's going to be a short smoke dance. And then the regional chief is gonna have a national chief.
Just myself.
Okay, so we'll have Chief Hill have a speech, congratulations. And to the side of the stage will be chief and council will be seated. On the stage, I'm assuming Brandon's bringing, last I heard, was his parents, his grandma, his niece, and his brother. They'll to go up the stage and down less than 10 seconds. We have a lot of staff inside, volunteers that will have a lot of goodies for our elders and our youth. We'll have sales to the right at the dojo, t-shirt sales. Those t-shirt sales will go to Jay Silverheels. Pinks is set up. They're ready to broadcast on the 2 screens where everyone's gonna be lined up outside. All the barricades are up and ready. Betts Park will have the vendors, the food vendors are gonna be setting up. Some people have their tents over there now ready. Village Plaza is another location where vendors could also set up. We have shuttle services starting at 9 a.m. from Speedway, and they're gonna go to Jameson School to drop off. Pickup is gonna be at BMO. They're gonna keep running every 15 minutes. And last I heard, the roads are closed from 9 until 6, 9:30 until 6. We have made arrangements with Public Works and Police. They're aware of those who are working, essential workers. They're still gonna be able to access throughout the community. I think that's it.
You want to talk about pinks?
So Pinks is going to be having, kind of like, highlights of Brandon's accomplishments to where he got to where he is now. Plus, once he gets there, they're gonna broadcast live what's happening in there.
There'll be screens outside.
Yes, there'll be a screen on the side of the arena where everyone's lined up on that big hill. There'll be a screen there for those people. And then there's gonna be another screen in front of the ball diamond facing the lines.
Water.
There's gonna be a water, a skid of water. I heard 2 skids of water are coming. They're gonna be right to the left of the entrance of the arena and 2 ice troughs. Also at the first aid station, which is right out front of the arena, Cool Kids has donated their refilling station. Also, right beside the water station, Tim Hortons is setting up a van. I wasn't sure if they were doing charging or free, but I think that'll come when they show up. We also have security there tonight, till the morning, till maintenance gets there. We have it, tonight we'll have the arena grounds blocked off, so no one will be able to access the arena until the morning.
And is the concession booth open?
Yes, the concession booth is open.
Which one?
The one inside.
The one inside will be?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we covered everything. I'm just
Okay.
making sure. Carrie?
Is the cup coming in with Brandon? Will he be bringing it in or will it already be in or?
Yeah, Brandon will be parading the cup through like the route from the speedway to the arena and then on the stage.
Audrey, then Greg.
Could you please go over the road closure again so that people can be assured they know where they're going?
So Nathan, can you help me with that?
So when we look at Cheesewood Road, the road will be blocked at Cheesewood and Fifth Line. We're also blocking access along the route between Fifth Line and Fourth Line. The road will be blocked on Fourth Line from Lawrence Martin Drive, not Seneca. I just want to be clear there, not Seneca. Lawrence Jonathan Drive, up to the Village Cafe. That'll allow, and we worked with Village Cafe yesterday and today, that'll allow for a turnaround, to utilize the parking lot for turnarounds safely at those locations. So those are the major areas that will be blocked. We have wooden barriers to block Veterans Lane because that's where emergency services will be coming through. So there'll be no parking, no access in those areas. So that is the plan for the road closures. And again, closing the road down at 9:30, opening it back up at 6 if we can open sooner. If folks are well on their way shortly after 4, then we'll open back up when we can safely do so.
Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Lee. I know you've been doing a lot of good work on this. Yeah, just to remind our community that, yeah, we will have a lot of visitors coming into the territory and to be mindful that I know we are good ambassadors to all of the visitors that we have and to be basically patient and respectful to everyone because the best place to view the cup may be along the parade route when we encourage everyone, of course, to carpool or get rides and also to be prepared for the weather. If the weather changes, you'll be prepared. Also that I think they be respectful of our police and in their operations as they try to keep everybody safe. And also there's going to be a media center set up. The media center will be set up for media and Brandon for when he arrives. And hopefully, I know that's a very tight schedule, and hopefully the parade will start right at 1, because there is a hard stop. There is a hard stop at 4, because of course he has another commitment later on in the evening. So just a bit for the community to be aware that, yeah, that it may not be possible for, for everyone to get in to see the cup. So we're going to do our best and try to keep people moving and everyone get a chance to be up there. So yeah, thanks, Lee, for all the work.
Helen?
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of calls today, so I can't go through them all. I got too many, but it's mostly about the road closures. I have a senior. He says he wants to watch the parade, but the seniors don't get to watch the parade because they have to be to the arena at 11 if they want to get in there.
It'll be on the screen. We're going to be doing it live. So if
I know
It's up to them.
they wanted to watch the parade outside. Seniors can, how are they going to get home after it's over? Like some of them can't walk from the arena to the Jameson school. I know my brother can't. So he's kind of in a conflict because he doesn't know what he's going to do. He can't walk from there. And that's where the buses, if he goes on a bus, that's where they're going to drop him off. And I'm sure there must be other seniors in the same situation that can't walk. Another question I had was from the people in the community, well, in the village. This one lady doesn't plan on going to the parade and she doesn't plan on going to the arena. But what if I want to go shopping? What if I want to go to the grocery store? I can't get out till 6 o'clock. So those are the kind of questions I'm getting. Like they're going to be pretty much, people in the village are going to be pretty much stuck in their house. They're not going to get out to do anything. So the ones that aren't going to the event, and I'm getting calls about doctor's appointments. I'm getting calls about physiotherapy, and they're not going to be able to do anything. And some of them are quite upset because they're elderly people, and they're quite upset. So what are we doing about people that live here that want to go out someplace during the day and they can't get out? Like what is happening? So if we don't get as many people as we're expecting, are the roads going to open after it's over?
Yes, Helen, they will.
Anyway, those are the kind of calls I've been getting.
And they've also, the emergency control group has like talked about that. Like traditionally, when there's a parade in the community knows where to go, how to navigate themselves. And I know they're gonna be manned by our local police. So I'm sure if they do go to the line or the road closures and they say, I gotta go here, I gotta do this, they're gonna let them through. Most of the communication that's gone out is because of the 20,000 people that we got coming here. So I think what we're trying to prepare for is that we're trying to get that communication out, is that's where we want them to go. We want them to go to the speedway. We want them to shuttle in. We want them to know that traditionally these are our community members that have their spots where they go when there's a parade.
you want to touch a little bit on the t-shirts? And then I have Carrie. Good.
Okay, so we have t-shirt sales that are gonna be for sale at the arena beside the dojo out front. And then we also have t-shirt sales out front here in front of the council building. And then we also have t-shirts that we're giving to the elders and the youth when they arrive inside the arena. And our event staff that are there, all of our volunteers. They're gonna be a different color, they're white.
Carrie?
Are the shuttle buses going to make any drop-offs or pickups? Or is it just a shuttle from there to here and no stops in between?
No, no stops in between.
Melba?
Yes, similar to Helen, that I got a few calls also that this is not sort of like an original parade that they're accustomed to, where they can see them along the route, that they can have their car, various places. So it is gonna be a little bit of hardship for quite a few of them if they haven't arranged to sit in someone's laneway, for example, or someone's yard that is convenient for them to see Brandon and the cars that are traveling along the route. Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, Lee, can you talk again about the emergency vehicles? You mentioned yesterday about the dialysis and other situations where they had to be in an emergency because it's so hot too. We may expect, people having some kind of heat problems related to their health. Thanks.
So I know emergency control is aware of the dialysis. There's arrangements being made for heat and say, I know they're stationed throughout the village, and we're also gonna have one paramedic right there on site.
Any other questions or comments? For Lee? Go ahead, Helen.
I just wanted to say to Lee, good job. I know it's been a lot of work the last few days.
Thank you, that means a lot.
It doesn't rain.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Lee. Yeah. Okay, let's go to number 3, Survivor Secretariat. Good evening. Can you just push your button? There you go.
Okay, I think Tabitha Curley is joining us online via Zoom. I'm coming before council tonight to give you an update on information that's been evolving over the last week nationally. It started with 2 conversations a week ago, one with Leah Red Crow in Alberta, associated with Saddle Lake and the Blue Quills Indian Residential School. She met with Canada for 30 minutes and was informed that the funding levels were dropping for work into unmarked burials. I delayed my meeting with Canada because we were hosting a gathering in Thunder Bay with survivors and young people. We met with Canada last Wednesday afternoon. I was informed by Canada, specifically the Deputy Minister Valerie Gideon, that effective the current fiscal year, Canada is reducing funding to all residential school unmarked burial projects. There will be a ceiling imposed of $200,000 per year for research, $300,000 a year for field work, which is actually ground search activities. In making the announcement, Deputy Minister said, "You may not be happy to hear this news," and then asked if I had any questions. I said I needed to share this information with our board before I could comment. I did ask 2 clarifying questions. The first was about an assumption Canada made that I was carrying forward $2.6 million in surplus, an issue I talked to Chief and Council with last winter. In fact, it wasn't. We had actually delayed two significant projects that we wanted to do because Canada was not giving any direction on where funding was going. And that meant funding applications. Our funding ended in March 31st. We put in our proposal for funding in October of 2023. It is now the end of July of 2024. And I have just been informed that what I thought was going to be a ceiling of 3 million per year in funding is actually $500,000. We were given no guidelines, no protocols, and no appeal mechanism associated with this. Leah and I were the only ones that Canada met with. And they, I think in part may have met with us because we were the only two agreements in the country that were standalone agreements with Canada. So after we finished the conversation, I immediately reached out to CBC News. We did a very quick interview with CBC. It was released that evening. By 11 o'clock the next morning, Canada called a national 30-minute conversation with every entity across Canada that is doing this work. We were given 3 hours notice, and when we logged in, all of our mics were muted. No one was allowed to speak. The conversation was 30 minutes long. 15 minutes of it, I would say, would have been substantive content in English. The rest was translation. If we had a question, we had to type it into a chat box. And one person was able to speak and ask a question, and that was because they didn't know how to operate Zoom. And so one person was allowed to ask a question. The call was ended. We again finished the call and immediately contacted media. So that would have been last Thursday. We were sitting in Thunder Bay doing this gathering with young people. What I think is telltale is Canada was in such a rush to send out this invitation, they forgot to BCC every entity. They actually CC'd every entity. So for me, if there was a win that came out of that meeting, I got the email address of every entity in the country who's doing this work. We now know who they are. So immediately after the meeting, within 24 hours, we worked with Fluid, who's doing our communications. We had template letters for people to send to MPs. We had draft language for media, press releases that communities could use. And we began trying to organize a gathering of the minds in Ottawa. And we did that gathering of the minds in Ottawa yesterday. APTN and CBC's numbers flux between several dozen to more than 100 people showing up. What I can tell you is we had representatives from Alberta, Manitoba, Quebec, Northern Ontario, and Southern Ontario. We had coverage with APTN, we had coverage with CBC, we had coverage with, I think, CTV and print media sources. We've done interviews with CHCH, we've met with the Spectator, the Expositor, and done CBC National and CBC Ottawa. The reason we're doing it is we're trying to bring focus to Canada, and part of the reason we're coming to council today is because Canada's spinning the message. And what they're saying, and people aren't following it because they keep spinning, that Canada has done cumulative funding in the amount of 216.5 million plus 91 million that was funded in the April budget. What they don't tell you is that they funded $216.5 million for the first 3 years we've been doing this work. They cut that funding to $91 million. They cut that funding at the same time that there are more applications now than there were in the original round of funding. They cut the funding a year after announcing that another 24.1 million records and documents were about to be released by Canada to the NCTR. They cut the funding as the International Commission on Missing Persons releases that Canada must sustain the level of funding, if not increase it, to address the ongoing work. And they cut the funding despite the special interlocutor's May release of a report that really drives home the point that this work is only just beginning. As we continue to have conversations across the country, communities are in panic. I'm aware of at least 2 communities that just did ceremony last week to begin their ground search. They've already stopped now because they don't have the funding. There was no notice to any communities. And the thing that is most problematic is that when we went to Ottawa yesterday, we had a 30-minute meeting, a follow-up meeting with that Deputy Minister, Valerie Gideon. It was abrupt, it was 30 minutes, and she continued to spin that Canada hasn't reduced funding. What they did is they've added 91 million to the 216.5. And I'm going, no, you only add if you sustain the 216.5 million and add 91 million. We were very clear in our meeting with her by Canada doing this. They talk about an announcement to combat denialism, when in fact, they're the biggest perpetuator of the denialism. Because if we can't get access to the records and the documents, the truth won't be told. The other part of the problem is, as we do this work, I saw a few signs in Ottawa that drove the point home for me. It was Canada, say their names. Canada can't say the names of the children because they buried the information about the children that were pulled from communities so deep, they can't tell you who went and when. What we can tell you from the Secretariat is we now have information that supports that we have 5,600 names of children who were pulled from communities. That's in 2.5 years' work. Say their names. Another statement that, as I said, the students made and our staff made relates also to the names of the people of interest. Those are the staff and the people that were involved in the operation of the school. Canada never released that information. We found it in our work. Say their names, who are the entities that were involved. We can now say it was the Church of England. We've gone to England ourselves to get the documents and records. It was the New England Company. We've gone to England ourselves to get the records and documents. Canada, and what we know from the interlocutor report is that the Federal Department of Indians was giving institutions permission to destroy records after 5 years, and after 10 years, they could burn them. The reason I have to search in 30 different archives is because Canada burned its evidence. We're now having to go to the other sources where those records were held. The problem is when Canada gives me $200,000 for research, when the real cost for the last 2 years has been about 2.1, 2.2 million for us, I can't do anything. And then I sit with survivors, like Diane and Charlene, who I'm going to pass over the rest of my speaking time to. Charlene said a beautiful point yesterday that I want to drive home. When we met with Deputy Minister Gideon, who is an Indigenous woman of Mi'kmaq ancestry out of Quebec, Charlene told her to remember the taste of the words. Remember the taste of the words that you say to us today. And she said, I don't understand what you mean by that. And I said, you remember that you didn't work for your nation at this table today. You worked for Canada at this table today. And that spiritually and culturally and from the very fundamentals of what this work is about, you were part of stopping truth telling. And Diane talked from a very personal perspective of what it was like as a child going into that school to the media. And the fact is, we keep re-traumatizing survivors by making them have to do this story, this narrative in front of media. The other part of it is, and this is the hardest part in the cut in the funding, they cut all funding for commemoration and memorialization, which means no more gatherings, no more ability for survivors to come together across the country and to do this work. And the reason it's so critically important is because children didn't get to write their truth. They lived their truth. And the only way they can bring that truth into history is they have to come together and talk it. And by cutting the funding and the ability for them to come together, you have once again silenced children. Now, as seniors, you do it again by telling them, we don't want to hear what you have to say anymore. And the final statement from me before I hand it to Diane and Charlene is $91 million is what Canada is prepared to commit to reconciliation. I sat at the TRC when they released the final report, and the Prime Minister said, we will implement, we will give you reconciliation, we will implement all 91 calls to action. And then when they met with survivors to talk about unmarked burials, Canada said, we will get the truth told. And so if you think about it, $91 million is what Canada thinks is needed to honor its commitment to reconciliation. And that's less than half of what they gave 3 years ago. What will it be in 2 years? And where will the calls to action and implementation of those calls be 5 years out? And so we come to you today, and I know we don't have to beg counsel. We come to you today because we've been talking to you now for 5 months. We need your help to get Canada to change this decision. We need them to reinstate the 216.5 million plus the 91 million. We can live with a 2-year agreement only if Canada commits to working with survivor organizations over this country to put a long-term sustainable plan of action in place, because records and documents and everything we're doing on ground search is about a 10 to 15-year agenda. That's what the experts are saying. Put a sustainable plan in so that people can know what their funding is and plan the work over 10 to 15 years. And I think if I could bring Charlene up to join us, I'd like her and Diane to finish off the conversation, but we need your help to get those things put back in funding. Since we met yesterday, we've been contacted by the AFN, the National Advisory Committee, chiefs and councils across the country. And it's funny, it's funny and it's not funny, because when we first did this meeting, with all of the designation organizations across the country, when we got off, one of the folks in the conversation said to us, why don't you contact those Mohawks? They know how to mix it up. They'll make this stuff stop. They'll put up some roadblocks. And so I'm sitting here saying, we're some of those Mohawks. And my mom's one of those survivors. We need to stop this decision. Here you go, Diane. There you go.
Push the button.
Scan su juego. Y bueno, en mi caso, otra yoni ne gashota, para kuno ni panchita. That's cute, girl. I'm cute. We're not all Mohawks, so yeah. But anyways, well, thank you for inviting us. I had a lot to think about. I had a lot to think about yesterday. From Thursday, combination of going, taking a bus up there, and we had that trauma. We had that trauma from the bus. Well, they conked out on us on the 401, and that was scary. It was really scary, but it didn't make me forget about why I was there in Ottawa. It didn't make me forget that. I revisited some trauma, but my sister and that. But yeah, there's something. I had to bring I had to bring my mom here, because I didn't have time to rush her home behind us. So I said, Mom, you gotta come with us. She's part of this intergenerational. Her mother was in that residential school in 1917 to 1919, and that wasn't talked about at all. So I didn't know, and then 4 of us were taken away from her. I don't know, about the records and everything. Because we did talk about it, I found out from my mother, my grandmother was in there, and then my great grandmother was there too. So, to keep on getting stopped and everything like this,
shortlisted, you would like, when I was there for 3 years. And I look at it, like, oh, you can only get $10,000. Like, so what about what else I suffered, right? And no, he said, oh, other people suffered it. It was other people taken away too, you know. I'm glad I was 10 and my brother was 9. I had a 7-year-old brother. Who's laying in critical condition right now at the Brantford General. It just come up. We just would come from the hospital to see him. Because what is the abuse that he suffered at that residential school is what he's repressed and tried to drink it away. But it's not going to go away like that. We need for these traumas to continue, so that he has a daughter, he has a grandson, so that grandson understands what's going on. I have 14 grandchildren and 1 great grandson. I want my grandchildren to know why we are the way we are today. I'm trying to take back my language and everything, but it costs. So I just, we need this. We need this continuance of knowledge and truth. Before I can reconcile with anyone like that, I want my truth. I want my voice. I want my knowledge shared and listened. We all got to be. I learned to be a heart with ears, right? Learned that, and I had to. When I told her yesterday, I said, you know what? You can't take back the words when you speak them. Taste the words before they come out of your mouth, because you can't take them back. They'll linger they'll echo in somebody else's ears. Sometimes I hear the echo of Duncan Campbell Scott. I hear that. Somebody read it, and I remembered it. And that's why I have to continue this fight. And I will. For all. For yours too, your ancestors too. Yamako. Tutsa.
Tego sewa gwego. Dan hil nyong yatsni johesa. Johowako ni nyong yatsni kunyakeha. Okay, nyado kunyakeha ni kunyakaha gane. Da none Chulumonto. Yawa gwego skolo widow away. Yawa gwego skolo de Juan Antonio. Yawa songoya diso gwego na horo squawe. Tekno lado songoya diso sego ali oya azivani salade sakato. Ungli wat nege daskia dohetste. Gijini wani salasa skeno wase karalas viohoke. No eto no the galwat queni. So within our identity, the first thing you acknowledge that we've made it here. That we had no misfortune on our journey here. That we made it peacefully. So that's the first thing we do. Tigani watonto. Dosa satni go hane jini ongwali hodos. No dosa satni go hane tego. The hari go sat donjo no. Neso jivandoli. We have our identity. We have our roles, our responsibilities. And it doesn't matter what building you go to, whether it's a church or a longhouse or neither. It's in your blood. Every one of you. All of us. We have a role and responsibility to help each other. So Laura mentioned commemoration. We hope to continue commemoration and honor those that have went beyond, those that we're looking for, those names we don't know yet. In September 2027, the Canadian government has stated that date as destroying the records of the MCTR. That truth will be gone. The truth of our survivors will be gone. Canada continues with deep passion to erase the residential school history that they created. The system of child trafficking, system of genocide against Indigenous children. That's what they hope to hide. Your ancestors and mine. So we need commemoration. I'm presently working with a family. I'm going into my 3rd year. They're looking for the remains of their family member who was murdered at Mount Elgin Residential School, age 4. Age 4, when he was thrown out the window. June 12th, age 4, he had an earache. He was locked in a room up on a 3rd floor. Why? Because he was crying. He was curled into a fetal position with pus and blood coming out of his ear. This isn't nice to hear, but it's the truth. It's well documented. We have all the medical records from the London hospital where he died. We have the coroner's report. 3 months ago, we requested again that investigation be reopened. And the only thing the family wants is to do ceremony and put their little baby at peace so he can continue and finalize his journey back to the sky world. They're trying to find his burial site. That's one. That's only one of thousands, tens of thousands. Residential school didn't start with the Canadian government. Came from the Church of England. Came from the royal family. Queen Elizabeth I, as well documented. Our residential schools are modeled after the orphanages in England. Auschwitz, Hitler, that was modeled after the indigenous residential schools where our children were thrown into and confined. A lot of people don't like to hear this horror story. It's the truth. Anything I say to you is fact. I can prove it. I can prove all of it. The first residential school on what is now Canadian soil pre-Confederation, 1620. So no, we're not battling just the horrors that were done at the Mohawk Residential School in Brantford. The first residential school was in Quebec, Catholic. We're battling a system that murdered our children for over 400 years. Murdered. And if anybody can prove me wrong, please do. When they starved our babies, when they raped and brutalized our babies, they murdered them through experimentation, disease. I wish somebody could prove me wrong. This is all documented, proven. Now Canada cut the funding. Why? Because they're going to release 25 million documents. Who's going to research those? How are we going to find our ancestors? When we're going into our 3rd year of finding one. That's why we need commemoration. We need to find the names. Yeah, I'm a prior inmate and hostage. Age 7. Mohawk Residential School. I was trafficked there for $14. It's not a nice thing to say, but it's the truth. It's a fact. November 23rd, 1963. That's what I live with. Last night when our bus caught fire, our little people, our children that were on the bus start screaming. Crying. The moms were screaming. We're all covered in black smoke. I looked back and the back of the bus was on fire. And I could see that blaze, that orange blaze right through the black smoke. I was the last one out. Why? Not because I'm brave, not because I'm stupid, because I froze. When the kids started screaming, I had a flashback. I was in a residential school again. I could hear the babies screaming. I could hear the children crying. And it put me right back into that hellhole. I couldn't move. I couldn't get off the bus. I froze. And I'm so thankful that we have our youth. Eric Patterson, Trayton Squire. Come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. And that brought me back to reality. Our youth, the first thing they did was once the children were off, they got our elders off. John Elliott, Lonnie Johnson, both have mobility problems due to their age. They got them off. They never left them. I want to move on to gatherings. Laura mentioned gatherings. It's extremely important that we have these gatherings. Out of the mush hole, 15,000 taken from nearly 70 territories. BC, we had Inuit, we had Cree, we had all kind of Indigenous children among us, all kind of languages we heard when they were able to whisper. 77 territories. So when we gather, there's 112 left of the Mohawk Residential School. I was in Toronto at a gathering. I don't go to many, but I went to this one. And I was sitting, I come from sunrise ceremony. And I went in the lobby and I had a coffee. This older gentleman come up. And you just know. You just know. And he looked at me and he says, "Which one?" I said, "Mushwell." And if you went to any residential school, you know the names. You say Mushwell, any survivor knows that name. Mushwell was one of the most brutal. That's why they built Indian hospitals. When the little children got raped and were sodomized by these priests, couldn't take them to a normal hospital. They had to hide it. So what'd they do? They built Indian hospitals. Is there Asian hospitals? No. Is there white hospitals? No. Is there black hospitals? No. So give it a thought. Why did we have Indian hospitals? What were they hiding? So I'm going to return to the lobby where this man come up and I said, "Mushwell." He told me which one he was from. He was from a fly-in community. And he asked me, he says, "How'd you get taken?" And I told him. I said, "And you?" He said they were in the cabin in their home. This man was 93. He said his mom went out to the bush. His dad was gone to the bush. And the kids were home. And they had to stay in a house. But there was a knock on the door. And when they opened the door, there was two men there in clothing they didn't recognize. And because these boys, these children, had such a deep respect for adults, they couldn't understand what they were saying in English. These men motioned for them to come, and they did. Because you listen to adults. They're going to keep you safe. They're going to help you. They're going to protect you. So they took him and his siblings down to the water, and they put him in a boat. When they got in that boat, the men sat on each end. And the one man threw the other man at the other end a rope. The man at the other end, he picked it up. And the first thing he did was he wrapped that rope around his sister's neck. She was 4. And then he went to his brother and he wrapped that rope around his neck. And he tied them all together like that. Because he knew that they could swim. And if one jumped out, they could get away. That's one story of one man. He still wakes up 92 years old and he can feel that rope on his neck. That's what we live with. So it's really important to have these gatherings. Because these things that we share, they're not for everybody to hear. A lot of people can't hear it, but we lived it. We survived that genocide. So survivors will only speak to survivors sometimes. Because what we lived through is not of this world. No human can think of these things, only if you're demonic. So I wanted to touch on those two things that are very critical to us, the commemoration, the continued research, and the gatherings that we do. We get to see people we hadn't seen at the last gathering we had on June 27th up in Brantford at the Best Western. I met a lady up there. And I have a hard time saying this. She was from. Say it. Waswanipi, Quebec. And her last name was she was that little wee lady. Yeah. Yeah. Edith Otter Eyes was her name. And she says, Diane, I remember sitting in grade 2 with you. And she said there was 4 rows. She said Curve Lake was to the left. And then Six Nations, that was me. She said, and then Waswanipi, that was her. And then she mentioned another one. And we hadn't seen each other in 64 years. So we got a chance to reconnect. I mean, there wasn't good memories at the school, but it was nice to know that she survived. So these gatherings are critical. Commemoration's critical. Research is utmost critical. So that we can find our babies, our children, and put them at peace and let them return back to the sky world. Yeah.
90-year-old back there is gonna be 91. She's also learning too.
Use your mic, just so they, yep, there,
I just a reminder too that my 91-year-old mom, she's gonna be 91 in October, but you know, she's going to learn too. She's about her mother and why she was raised the way she was raised, that she tried to raise us that way, my mom, you know, so but I had to go back and get an understanding of why, and so yeah, just try to make me in a strawberry patch all the time, you know. But you know, like she's learning. She's learning when she goes to these things, gatherings and that. She's learning about her mother, where her mother sat, where her mother lived. And then when 4 of us were taken away from her in 1966, she's also she's carrying a lot of ancestral trauma herself, right? And we didn't need that. Yeah. Hey, Toto.
okay. First of all, I'm glad everyone made it safe last night. That for sure, with what happened. Secondly, you need to tell the truth, your truth, and it needs to be heard. It's been shut down so much for so many years, and they threw all this money and thought it was the great thing. Well, people were talking. We've told them before that they didn't believe it. And still today, you need to tell the truth. Tell your truth. And the Canadians, and shame on the government again. It's disgusting. Because you're right. Everyone around this table probably has family, ancestors who have went. So what council agrees, what we can do here, and I can go for questions, is for sure to reach out to that minister. Start there. Questions? Melba?
Well, I don't have questions. I certainly do have comments, I guess. What we have is broken promises once again. We had the Truth and Reconciliation with Murray Sinclair and a couple others working on these articles that need to be in place. And now there's broken promises again. With conciliation, they certainly were very serious about reconciliation. I'll read you 73. We call upon the federal government to work with churches, Aboriginal communities, former residential school students to establish and maintain an online registry of residential school cemeteries, including, where possible, plot maps showing the location of deceased residential school children. We call upon the federal government to work with the churches and Aboriginal community leaders to inform the families of children who died at residential schools of the child's burial location, and to respond to families wishing for appropriate commemoration ceremonies and markers and reburial in home communities when requested. We call upon the federal government to work with provincial, territorial, and municipal governments, churches, Aboriginal communities, former residential school students, and current landowners to develop and implement strategies and procedures for the ongoing identification, documentation, maintenance, commemoration, and protection of residential school cemeteries or other sites at which residential school children were buried. This is to include the provision of appropriate memorial ceremonies and commemorative markers to honor the deceased children. And Laura has spoken to this, that the research, and Diane and Charlene are informing this council that they wish your help. What can we do to help to restore the funding that is necessary to carry on the work for those that have suffered through the years, including themselves? You can see the tears tonight and the sadness in talking about the stories and how they're going to continue to suffer. They have flourished, these residential school survivors. They can talk about their stories. They can tell community and outside people now what happened to them. And that's what we're supposed to do, is to tell the whole world what happened to our people in attempting to have them turned into non-native people. So I think we should seriously discuss how we can help this organization, who has come a long way and require lots of money to continue to do research. As Laura had mentioned, it needs to be ongoing, to find the graves, to have those children return to their original communities. We have people, as was mentioned, they come from all over different territories, Quebec, Wismonami, as was said, different places. So I would suggest that we have a special meeting to discuss the strategy that's going to take place to help this organization, this secretariat that is in place, to continue the funding. If we have to call every province, territory in this country, we need to do that. We need to show the governments of this Canadian society that we will no longer tolerate What is happening?
Thank you, Melba. Any other questions or comments? Yep.
Dos asuntos, Jacket Oko.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Helen?
So did they give any indication like why they're cutting the funding, or did they just say we're cutting the funding?
It's
They never
exactly
gave
what
a
they said.
reason or?
There was no dialogue. This is not news we think you're gonna be happy about fundings being reduced. There were no like as I said, when Leah and I were spoken with, no guidelines, no explanation. And I'm in honesty saying to you, as recently as 2 months ago, we were hearing the ceiling was gonna be 3 million per year. So no, there was no, the big C word around consultation. There was no consultation. There was no engagement. We have far surpassed our time, and so we want to thank you for allowing us to come this evening. I have a distribution list that if you would like it, I will make sure it's provided to you of every entity in the country. And we'll make sure, I can give you the edited one where we took everybody from government out, and I can give you the one with all the CERNAC and ISK people in it as well. Okay.
Please. Dean?
Thank you, all of you for coming in and sharing your stories. I know it every time you have to share it and bring it up, right? It's continuing to bring up the trauma. I'd just like to put the motion on the floor for a special meeting regarding this topic on Survivor Secretariat, and for our chief and counsel to get the initial letter sent out to the appropriate ministers. So I'll put the motion on the floor for that.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a seconder? Audrey? Questions?
Wonder if we might send it to all ministers. Everybody should know about this. Everybody needs to hear about it. I'm looking at the budget for immigration, 320 million just for part of it. That's enough. Give us that budget.
Add that. Is that okay to your motion?
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Seen none, carried. Waive second reading. Moved by Dean, second by Audrey. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Seen and carried. Again, thank you for coming. Yeah. Have a good night. Let's move to number 5. Adoption of General Council minutes for July 9th. Moved by Dale. Is there a seconder? Second by Lena. Yep. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Seen none, carried. Let's go to number 6, recommendation 6.1. The Ontario Works Office has expressed an interest in the future delivery of Ontario Disability Support Program.
I'll move.
Moved by Dean. Is there a seconder? Second by Hazel. Says therefore it resolved that Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council approve of the letter of support for the delivery and administrating Ontario Disability Support Program through Ontario Works. Questions, Audrey?
Yeah, I just want to know that we're just not plain taking it over, that there's going to be some planning and negotiating there for when our enrollment increases, that the money will be there for them as well, not like this cut here and we're going to try and make do. So that follow it as well.
We're just requesting, really the permission to do exactly what you just said.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor? Be opposed? Seen none, carried. Waive second reading by Dean, second by Hazel. All in favor? Be opposed? Seen none, carried. Number 7, recommendations from the Justice Committee. 7.1, moved by Melba Thomas and seconded by Cynthia Jamison. The Justice Committee recommends Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council to approve the Justice Committee terms of reference. Moved by Melba, is there, Cynthia's not on, is there a seconder? Second by Dale. Oh, is she? Oh, okay. I see you there now, Cynthia.
Yeah, I'm on.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Dale. Go ahead, Elena. Seven one.
Internal systems is next, same thing, mandate and terms of reference. So I was going to bring this up on mine, which is, in the mandate, it says the committee members. But I'm just wondering if those names change. I know we wanted to review kind of in 6 months, if everybody was happy where they are and if the system was working. If those names change, then we have to revisit all of these mandates and reapprove them. I wonder if having the committee member names is not a good idea. Just create more work. It's a standard, I think, in all of them. So in my internal systems, it's the same. And I was gonna recommend that we take out the committee member names.
So approve without the names. Yep. Is that okay? Audrey?
Yeah, but could we still get the names like on a chart with stuff? Okay, wonderful.
Separate one?
'Cause I don't know who's on what.
Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor? Anybody opposed?
I have a comment.
Oh, yep, go ahead, Cynthia.
I can't find that raise the hand button. I don't know. I think we should leave the names in there because we're supposed to get this done and post it so the community is aware. And then they'll know who to contact regarding their, whatever their issues are. Otherwise, they won't know. Everything is electronic. I don't think it's a big deal if we have to change a name or two.
So there can be 2 documents. This is, the one can be posted with the names and who's on the committees. The mandates are just for internal. So all in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Question,
Yeah, the mandates are internal and the community doesn't know what people are supposed to be doing. That doesn't make logical reasoning to me.
so we can release those also, what the mandates are.
Okay.
So with the mandates to each committee and who's on the committee. And also that's where, the committee and the chairs and the co-chairs can do their updates, if it's on the radio or if it's on wherever to do here at council, to do the updates on what each committee's doing. Yep, go ahead, Cynthia.
Yeah, I hear I found the button, sorry. I don't know if they're all finalized. I know it's taken a while, but what needs to be done, and we haven't done yet, is to have a written procedure. I find some folks are still not certain how it works. So we need to have that done.
Okay, we'll get that done. Just talk.
I think I had started, I could share if I can find it. I can't remember. One of the counselors, it was a couple months back now, so maybe it's good, but was asking or questioning how things worked. And I laid out my understanding. I could share that again because we could just expand that.
Okay, great, if you could.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Audrey?
Yeah, Cynthia, could you also put decision making on that the decisions are made by the council at the council table?
Yeah, that would be part of that whole procedural business.
Okay, thank you.
So recommendation 7.2, moved by Melba Thomas and second by Cynthia Jamison. The Justice Committee recommends Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council to approve the Justice Committee mandate.
People doing? What did people doing?
Yes.
Is there any questions, comments? If not, all in favor? Any opposed?
Yes.
See none, carried. So let's do the recommendation, number 8, recommendation for internal systems, moved by Dale Bomberry and second by Cynthia Jamison, that the Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council accept the internal systems, terms of reference, and mandates. Is there any questions or comments? Go ahead, Elena.
So same thing with this one, just the committee members, and then there was just one grammatical error that I wanted to correct. It's nothing big, just we need an of in the vision statement.
Okay, with the corrections? Did you get that, Shirley? Yeah. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Let's go to number 9. There are parks in Cheesewood Park splash pad. Go ahead, Nathan.
Councillor Jamison, do you want me to start and you can fill in? This is the conservation parks as well as a splash pad.
You can just lead into it. You have to excuse me. I'm in my bedroom and I put my dog in here.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a few weeks ago. I asked Nathan, I said, I remembered him telling council about with the conservation parks along the Grand River that our members did not need to pay the fee. And after that, I had been contacted by a community member. They have their big family picnic at Bing near Dunville and wanted to know how that worked, because I had given your explanation, Nathan. Because they said they've been going there quite a while. There was never a problem, didn't have to pay the fee. Then a couple of years ago, they were going to have to pay the fee and they got a hold of the manager or whomever. And he clarified, no, they didn't. But last year, the park was adamant they had to pay the fee because there was upkeep for the swimming pool, etc. Anyways, the member wanted to know, was there a special paper they should have because they showed their status cards, etc. And I got a hold of Nathan, and what he found, it was actually an initiative through the Cheese of Ontario, and in the using the Truth and Reconciliation, Nathan? Was that what it was based on? Everyone's trying to make things well that are not. In any event, there was I think it was a 13-page document that Nathan provided. And it was all like for awareness for these park folks and the fact that, and I think it was section 2, that the First Nations just showing their status card didn't have to pay a fee, but should give notice ahead of time, especially for bigger gatherings. In this particular case, I Googled and found the phone number for the park superintendent, and the member tried and got back and said it was out of order. I got another one, same thing. And I asked Nathan if he was able to follow up and get the number, and I told him what had transpired, which he did. And subsequently, he got a hold of someone, and it was the call of that particular park superintendent that they would pay the fee. I believe Nathan explained that they wouldn't charge a fee if it were for ceremonial hunting or fishing. And Nathan said maybe this is something we should follow up. And I said, for sure, we need to wrinkle that 13-page document out and put a notice to all those parks, the conservation parks along the Grand River. And I'm not sure Nathan or somebody there would know, the Grand River Conservation Authority, do they have anything to do with this, or is it entirely separate?
Yeah, I can answer your last question. The all the conservation what I found out is I dug a little deeper after the incident with the family, and all conservation parks, whether it be the Grand River, Brant, Bings, they all been provided guidance documents by both Ontario and Canada on the exemption. But what we're finding, even inside and outside the track, is the interpretation varies. Where a lot of the parks, you can just drive up, show your status card, and drive on through. But some, and Bing's included, and what they're saying now is because they have amenities. If you want to use the amenities, then the fee isn't waived anymore. And I think that was a change as these amenities started coming into these conservation parks. And I think that leads to a number of questions within the track on, the duty to consult. Were we consulted on amenities going into a conservation park? We haven't initiated the work other than my fact finding and working with Councillor Jameson on this. But wanted to bring it to council for discussion because I think there's likely some implications if we work within the track on the court case. So we would want to bring in lands and resources into the conversation, and get clarity so that our members don't have to pay the fee, enter into these parks, and having that coming back to some consistency, because the family we were working with, they had 100 members going into the park, where, the expectation in the past was the fee was waived. But, it shouldn't bear much weight if, the amenities are costing them. That's not something we were consulted with at the time. So these are, it's just kind of weird having to pay, $8 to $11 to access your own land. It's the principle of the thing. It really doesn't have much to do with the amenities that are within these parks. So there is an avenue I can see through the policy as well as the guidance documents coming from both Canada and Ontario on these, which to me is very clear. The guidance is we don't have to pay for the use of our own land. We just have to show our status card as an identifier. So yeah, I think it's important for us to ensure that our members continue to enjoy their own land.
If I could, Nathan or Chair,
Yep, go ahead, Cynthia.
if I could just add to that, also around the same time I was being questioned by, these are a different set of members, about the use of the splash pad at Chiefswood Park. That is, I was told that the one fella said he was taking his grandchildren in and he had to pay $10 to go use their own park. And of course, when people are expressing it, they're quite annoyed. So I wondered if we could bring that up. I know it's under the control of the Six Nations Act Dev Corps. However, and if we're saying, and which we rightly should be saying, we shouldn't have to pay a fee to be entering our own land, and right, especially when it's right in front of us, Chiefswood. I was wondering if there's something we could do about that fee as well.
So with that, and Amos, that I did reach out to Matt Jameson, and there must have been some miscommunication. But for the splash pad, it is free to get in to use the splash pad.
Hey, did that Matt make sure that whoever they are that collects this money is fully aware of it? Because I understood from the meeting, Amos ran into that same thing, or people he knows. You know how it is, often there's a rule and the rule does not get communicated, and then this sort of thing happens.
Yes, I did ask that, and for the people who are taking the money or looking after the gate, will they be notified? He said yes, there will be better communication with the staff.
Okay, thank you for that, and I'll let the people who contacted me know about that.
Okay, thank you. So let's go to number 10, community safety. And again, this is just for discussion. These are some comments that, concerns that have been coming in. The number of non-natives doing business in the community, the increased prevalence of drugs in the community, and fear of community safety. So again, if we can take the first one, the number of non-natives doing business in the community. I'm not sure if wealth and economy, or if we can discuss, if we can start taking some of these concerns and seeing what we can do. Go ahead, Elena.
I think we've had brief discussion about that for a number of industries in the community, but there's nothing that we really can do as virtually all of the non-native people that are doing business or working within the community are either employed by somebody or in partnership with somebody. And that somebody is usually a band member. So there's, and doing private business. So there's not really anything for us to do if they are doing business or in business with a band member.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Dale.
I guess just further, that we probably need to clarify just what type of business they're doing. And are they, because you got a lot of people coming in and do business, for example, the tradespeople. There's not a lot of tradespeople on Six Nations, so they hire a lot of non-natives. So I guess we need to clarify when we make that statement what business they're doing, and if they're doing it sole source, or like Elena said, if they're in partners with somebody who's a community member, a registered member, it makes it difficult for us to do anything. But I guess it's the type of business that they involved in, and if it is illegal, then that's where the police need to be involved.
Carrie?
Yeah, it's, if you're down 6 line at any time, like maybe shortly in the afternoon or even on the weekends, the people coming in from Caledonia or wherever to get gas and cigarettes, they come down 6 line off Highway 6. And it's like, I bet you 12 cars trying to get back on Highway 6 after. It's pretty sickening. Maybe we can charge them toll or something, I don't know.
Helen?
Yeah, I don't know, we gotta do something, because I see us, not just council, but the HCC, the community, losing control of our community. We've totally lost control. We have nothing. We can't stop anybody from doing anything. And it's only gonna get worse. And I think it's, in the long run, I think it's gonna end up being the end of the reserve. Because we've lost control of the land, we lost control of what people are doing on the land. I think it's gonna, if people don't smarten up, it's gonna end up being the end of the reserve at some point, I think. But I don't know what can be done, because I don't know why 100 years ago, council decided to go with the CP. Certificate of possession, that's the culprit. Is the certificate of possession, because now people are saying, this is my land, I can do what I want. There's not that many reserves in Canada that have the certificate of possession, we're one of the main ones, and I don't know why they started doing that 100 years ago. But that's the way I see it. I think we've totally lost control of our community, and I think it's only going to get worse, and it's going to be the end of us and our reserve. If we can't figure out to do something, I don't know what we can do, because Elena's right. Our people are the ones doing business with all of the Chinese and the Asians and the Black people and all these people that come here, that are here. I've been getting some comments from community members that have raised concerns about some of the people, and the people that they're being raised concerns about, it turns around and just tells them to F off. Got nothing to say about me being here. And another concern I heard today is that it's getting really stink over that part of the reserve with all of that cannabis that Jesse Porter's planted. It's getting stink over there. You can smell it when you drive by. And they're not even, haven't even grown that long yet. I don't know what it's gonna be like when they're fully ready to harvest, but you know, it's even caused like conflicts within his own family because his sister's the one that's been saying stuff. So I don't know. I'm hanging on to my little piece of land, and I got that big cigarette factory next door to me, and I heard the possibility that exists. There might be another one on the corner of Chiefswood and Fifth Line. Oh, that's not going to happen. If I got anything to say about it, I'll camp out there if I have to, because we got enough stink cigarettes in my neighborhood. And I also have a lot of complaints from people on Fifth Line that they're concerned because they think an airstrip is being built on Fifth Line. And I brought this up before, and I drove by there the other day, and there's a lot of work being done back there. And I think they're working on that airstrip, but I can't find out who it is. But the neighbors are all complaining to me, and what's council gonna do about it? Well, don't they have people, I would think people would have to get, what's it called when it's airplanes, transportation? The ministry that would be responsible for airplanes. Pardon? I don't know. I mean, there's a ministry, like you have to get licensed and you gotta get all kinds of stuff. You can't just put an airstrip someplace, I don't think, but I don't know. I'm telling people that they're saying it's their land, they can do, people are saying it's their land, they can do what they want. You're gonna have airplanes flying over your house maybe, I don't know. But what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do?
Nathan, go ahead.
Just some food for thought for council in terms of suggestions, because these are difficult conversations as well as difficult issues to kind of address on a lot of fronts. My just kind of looking at the 3 bullet points that are suggested in this discussion. It's always important because I don't want folks to become overwhelmed, and I'm hearing a lot of what do we do in these types of situations. My recommendation is take the first step, and start kind of looking at it from the standpoint of the committees that we have, and assign some of these issues to those committees to develop those strategies. You know, right off the top of my head, my thought is, you know, the business happening in our community, we got wealth and economy to look at what that strategy could do. You got the prevalence of drugs in our community. That's well-being in terms of those particular pieces. Fear for community safety, and we have the community committee to start looking at what those strategies might entail. I know from an administrative standpoint, community safety, we have started a proposal for at least safety cameras to be deployed in certain sections of the community, working with Six Nations Police, who are imploring us to put that proposal in place. So we're working with them to determine, you know, what's the best situation for those cameras? Where do they go? How many do we need? And really from an incident command standpoint, who has access in a lot of ways. So Some of these we are kind of working on from an administrative standpoint to ensure that we have the resources to do this particular work. And the the one thing too, the one thing with something that's prevalence of drugs, the one thing that we have in our area is data. We know that the Six Nations Police do an amazing job because we open up Facebook and we see that they've done another raid somewhere. So we are tracking those stats, so we can bring those to the committee level to develop those strategies. So I'd strongly recommend that we start assigning some of these pieces out to the committees and really take that first step because we got to start somewhere.
Thank you, Nathan. Just before Hazel, so if it's okay for the well-being community and wealth and economy to have a discussion at their table anyways, and let's go from there. Hazel?
Yeah, with regard to the topic of the cannabis that's being grown down the road by Jesse Porter. We have our cannabis commission who belongs to Six Nations Council. And I always was of the opinion that the growing had to occur indoors and not outdoors. So then if that is truly in that law, can it be enforced that he can't grow it outside? Like, and it's ours. It really belongs to us, the Cannabis Commission, the regulations. So why can't we enforce that and say, you cannot do that? Didn't somebody get all their cannabis chopped down last year? You can do the same thing now. And I'm thinking that in order to have control, you gotta have a conviction that regardless of who gets mad or threatens or whatever, you have to do enforcement to be the government that we're meant to be. I think, I don't know, I guess we all need to stand up and have that backbone. This is what we're gonna do. That's how I see that situation down the road. If those laws in that cannabis document, and we have the commission working on our behalf, then enforce it. Simple as that. Thank you.
Elena?
Because these are serious issues and a lot of community members have a lot of opinions on them and suggestions for solutions, I would encourage all the committees, including Wealth and Economy, to reinstitute community meetings. COVID's over, and for all of these big issues where we need a lot of opinions, because they are issues where we need community support to empower the enforcement. Because like Helen said, people just tell you to get lost because it's their property. But we need community support to empower us to enforce these things. So I think they are big enough issues such that we need to have community-wide meetings for them.
Amos?
Yeah, I was thinking about this too in the last little while. I think we need to have a workshop ourselves or with the community, like Elena's saying. Like, who has the moral authority in this community? The moral authority. It used to be the church. It used to be the Longhouse. It used to be a confederacy. Now it's elected council. We need to go to the community and say, who do you entrust with that moral authority? Because now they're saying, I have the moral authority. You can't tell me what to do with my property. So it shifted in the last probably 3 decades, that attitude. And if you don't know what moral authority is, I would say go home and read it tonight. That's what's missing here. Who has the moral authority? I was championing those people that wanted to go and burn down that drug house. That's moral authority. Those people took it. They were going to go and burn that drug house down a couple of years ago or a decade ago. It's something you can't see, right? But that's what moral authority is. And we have to ask ourselves, who has that? You know, we need the whole community to have a discussion about moral authority now. Because now there's, you know, I hear conversations about organized crime here, backing all of these businesses or in this industry. How do we deal with that then? I know it's the first time we talked about this in the last 6 months. But there's whispers in the community about organized crime. So where's that moral authority to address that or confront it? I think we need to think about that. Maybe that's what we do with this public session with the community. It's about moral authority.
Okay, thank you. So for number 10, if you can take them back to your committees and go from there. Let's go to number 11. Number 1, Air 20th Celebration Invitation. 200, sorry. 11.1, the Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council approve counselor to attend the Air 200 celebration to say a few words at official anniversary weekend opening on Saturday, August 3rd, 2024 at 1 o'clock. If there's anyone who wants to go. Yep, go ahead.
I haven't been sitting at this table for too long, but what has AIR ever done for us? Just so I know.
Yep.
And nothing against AIR, but what have they done for us?
So it's just an invitation and I just brought it here in case a counselor wanted to go. So if not, then we can do the regrets. Go ahead. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Dale. You want to say it louder?
On their invitation, I said, if anybody is unable to attend that, it says you can send a letter and they'll read it out aloud in their celebration.
What would council like to do? Send a letter? Go ahead, Melba.
Yeah, I guess there's different ways of looking at that because have been in the process of establishing relationships. We need to help each other and we need to help the surrounding areas when it's necessary and if we can. And I guess as Dale said, you know, a letter could be in place of the presence of a counselor or chief, congratulating them, I guess, on their anniversary and that we were unable to attend. So I think whether we're going to continue and pick and choose, and like that's the way I look at it anyway. Yeah, they may do something for us, or we might find it necessary to do something for them in the future. Thanks.
Amos?
A letter going out congratulating them at least. Mhm.
Okay, so with everybody's just a congratulations letter? Okay, short, sweet, alrighty. Number 2, Child and Family Services of the Grand Erie. Six Nations elected council, Six Nations of the Grand River elected council, post-approved Councilor Melba Thomas to attend the Child and Family Services of Grand Erie ceremony on Monday, July 8th, 2024, starting at 2 p.m., located at 221 Henry Street, Brantford. Moved by Hazel, second by Dean. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Post approval. This one here, number 3, invitation to Brant Community Healthcare System Foundation's 2024 Night Gala. So the Six Nations of the Grand River elected council, approve. I'm unable to go that night. So any counselors to attend the Brant Community Healthcare Systems Foundation's 2024 Night Gala on Friday, September 20th at the Infinity Conference Center in Brantford. Anyone like to go? Dean? Deja? Okay, did you want to go? Greg? Go ahead, Helen?
So this is the one we went to last year where we bought a table? And it was full. We had staff there, me and Greg was there. Staff were there. It was good. Hmm? Yeah, we bought.
Excuse me, are we buying a table then?
I think it's the same one.
So again, table set for 8 are 2,000 and tickets are 250. What would council like to do? Would you like to buy a table or would you like to send Dean and Greg? Send Dean and Greg. So can I have a mover to for Dean and Greg to go to this? Moved by Audrey, second by Amos. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Seen and carried. Um,
I just want to confirm that you wouldn't expect the honorarium for this. Okay, because it is a gala.
So number 4, Nishnawbek Alternative Addictions Eradication Territory Community Members Gathering. So to attend Six Nations of the Grand River elected council, approve a counselor to attend the Territory Community Members Gathering on Saturday, July 27th. Is there anyone who would like to go? Right. That's the powwow also. So if you'd like to go, just let us know, and if not, we can send regrets. Perry Sound. If you'd like to go, just let Shirley know. Number 5, meeting with City Waterloo Mayor McCabe extended an offer to a follow-up meeting with Chief Hillcap and members of the Unity Building Committee to continue build a relationship with Six Nations. So this was probably changed about 5 times. That Six Nations of the Grand River elected council post approved Chief Sherry Lynn Hill, Councillor Greg Fraser, who attended a meeting with the Mayor McCabe in the city of Waterloo on Tuesday, July 16th. Mover? Moved by Dean, second by Hazel. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Seen none, carried. Number 12. So my updates. Chiefs of Ontario, staff informed the COO table of economic development on July 15th that their technicians are going to be conducting some research and further discussion about the resolution that I recently made to restore the municipal property tax exemption. This resolution was put forward to ensure that lands that are currently in additions to reserve process are not taxed. COO technical table are already making plans to advance this important work, and they will be checking in with my staff to ensure they have all of the information my office has regarding this matter. Attending the OFNLP AGM, July 4th. So Ontario First Nations Limited Partnership in Toronto. The OFNLP provided funds from the gaming proceeds in the province of Ontario to the partner First Nations. SNGR is a partner First Nation And the annual meeting is a forum where we are apprised of OFNLP business development. And again, we'll be coming to council for more discussions on that. Ontario First Nation Sovereign Wealth was on also the afternoon on the same day on July 4th. Six Nations is a shareholder of this fund, along with 129 other First Nations in Ontario region. This is another source of revenue that contributes to the provision of services for our community. Again, they will be coming to council also to discuss. Ron Jameson still sits there. Yep. Assembly of First Nations was July 8th. Councillor Dean Hill, Councillor Amos Key Jr., Councillor Greg Fraser, and Councillor Leslie Green attended the 2024 AFN Annual General Assembly in Montreal. The theme of this year, AGM, was strengthening our relationships. The AG was very well attended with over 2,400 participants of First Nations across Canada. During the assembly, had to attend regional breakout sessions, networking sessions, and voting, including on 67 different draft resolutions on many different topics. 54 of the resolutions were passed by Chiefs of Assembly. On Monday, July 7th, I also attended 3 of the AFN concurrent dialogue sessions, additions to reserve First Nations language regional allocation formula, and First Nation citizenship and identity rights. Yep, go ahead.
From the ATR from that meeting?
Yes, we can get that out to you for sure. There's some handouts. Yep. Go ahead, Audrey.
Yeah, and what about the funding formula for language? Can you get a copy of that too, please?
Yeah, we can get all that out for you. Yep. Next one, meeting with Grand Chief Remy Vincent of the Huron-Wendat on July 9th. It was an introductory meeting with the Grand Chief. The Grand Chief Vincent visited Six Nations over a year ago. The meeting was very informative as we discussed addressing shared challenges, including similar dealings with land claims. And he's wanting to work with Six Nations, especially with burials and archaeology. So continuing the relationship there. Chiefs of Ontario leadership was July 9th. I attended as this was the first LC meeting since the newly elected Ontario Regional Chief Benedict was selected. The focus was on looking forward regarding planning ahead. Discussions were held on assigning LC members with portfolio strategy plan for political advocacy with Premier Ford and various ministers, and the coordination of the LC members and coup directors to do a retreat to continue the strategic planning. Association on Municipalities, AMO. Members of the 59th elected council will be attending the upcoming AMO conference in Ottawa in August. This conference is historical, involving municipalities, but First Nations are getting involved because it is a good opportunity to build productive working relationships with nearby communities, to explore common issues, and to secure meetings with provincial cabinet ministers. And we're currently working to build productive itinerary to support our advocacy efforts in advancing Six Nations community needs. And also too, with that, at AMO, it's interesting when you hear a lot of these municipalities, how much of a good relationship they have with their surrounding First Nations. And there's not many First Nations that are attending. Okay, and just again, met with Minister. And Tim Hortons camp was July 17th. Myself and Elaine and Councillor Elena Van Avery and Dean. Did you get up there? Good, I didn't see you. And Councillor Dean Hill accepted the challenge to sit on the Camp Day dunk tank at the Shawinigan location. Camp Day is Tim Hortons' largest fundraiser that benefits so many kids and youth, and it was great to be part of this day. It was fun. We got soaked a lot. Did you, Dean? Did you? Yeah. One after another. Is there a mover to accept my update? Moved by Audrey, seconder by Lena, all in favor? By opposed? Seen and carried. Helen, yours, we wanted to bring number 4. Come to the front. Yeah. So Chief's Office Political Support Staff Proposal. Whereas the 2023 Election Code Section 18, Item 17 states that should additional staff be required for elected chief is responsible for forwarding the request to council for approval based on available band supporting funds. So whereas a full proposal for additional staff was developed, and again, there was some discussion during a finance meeting that I know there was some miscommunication. There was no resolution passed that I'm getting 3 to 5 staff that I heard that was passed here. Also, with the data that was shared to full council in the 6 months between myself, my chief of staff, Linda Parker, Claire Petron, and Christopher Mahon. We had nearly 14,000 emails between the 4 of us. I don't have it. Do you have it up? Do you have that proposal up? Do you have it? Yeah. Do you have it? Thank you. So again, why I'm bringing this up is because it's going to be discussed here and this hasn't been changed for so many years. It's stayed that there's 2 staff. We have gotten a lot larger over the years, and especially nearly 1,000 employees. And so with what I said there, 20 meetings with individual community members, 49 community related events, 9 Chiefs of Ontario related sessions, 7 Six Nations Economic Development Corporation meetings, 28 relationship building meetings, 29 meet with external agencies and organizations, and then 89 meeting sessions with SNEC. So again, that was just some data that I did give to the counselors regarding this. And it says, whereas is confirmed that there are available band support funds to cover additional political support staff. Therefore, it is resolved that Six Nations elected council approve the request for 1 additional political support staff to the end of the 59th elected council. Go ahead, Linda.
Where did you want me to start? Just, did you want me to run through the proposal that's in front of you? Council? Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so just the background piece to it, as Chief had said, the 58th elected chief had a complement of 3 staff, and on accepting the role as the new elected council, for the 59th elected council, sorry, the elected chief of the 59th elected, Chief Sheridan Hill also undertook steps to secure the same staff. And then on the 24th of June, at a political liaison meeting, it was formally raised that the staffing of the elected chief was in violation of both the employment policy and the 2023 election code. So the employment policy states that there can be 2 support staff, and the election code states that should additional staff be required, the elected chief is responsible for forwarding the request for council for approval based on band support funding. So bottom line, we've put together a proposal asking for a 3rd staff member. I guess at the end of the day, I mean, the proposal is based on need. It's based on the volume of work that is there. The benefits overall to council, the role of the chief's office does directly, I guess, deliver on not just the responsibilities of chief, but the overarching success of the 59th council and the work that is done on behalf of community. So that's really the overarching benefit of the proposal. We are highlighting 5 different areas. So under the election code, there are many enumerated, 18, no, section 18, there are many enumerated responsibilities of chief. And we're really focusing on 5 of them that are very um, resource heavy responsibilities. The first one being reporting to the elected council on all global, national, political, legal, constitutional, and legislative issues to the extent of their impact on Six Nations. So the proposal speaks to how the chief's office has addressed reporting on those matters. And again, as shared in 2024 budget week, um, it says the legislative impacts and the implications that chief and council operate within are really 5-pronged: the local government, the municipal government, the provincial government, federal government, and the international government. In addition, there's nation to nation work that is being done, such as working with the Chiefs of Ontario, the Iroquois Caucus, and the Assembly of First Nations. And much of the political work, as you can appreciate and understand, is very complex. I mean, there's so many legislations and legislative processes and policies that really need to be understood in order to advance any issues. So that's first part of it. The second piece that we're really looking at, and as again, very time consuming, is to acknowledge and accommodate all public inquiries for assistance and or to provide direction where inquiries involve matters of a sensitive and or confidential nature. So starting with this term, you know, there are some, I guess, issues and matters that really set precedent for this particular council and possibly the entire community. Number one, the glebe-lands. I mean, everyone knows that removal of encampments and the environmental cleanup that started at the beginning of this term has been very time consuming. And thank you to Councillor Fraser for all your work and championing that work. But it does take time. There have been a number of border crossing issues this year with the changes to payment at the Peace Bridge. I mean, we were constantly hearing for a short period of time, well, I can't get across, I can't get across. So there's just a number of different matters that we're pressing. And there are regularly many community members that reach out directly to the chief's office regarding domestic and personal matters. They just at a loss with where do they get assistance. The third piece that we're focusing on is the responsibility for the internal and external political liaison between Six Nations elected council, First Nations governments, provincial, federal, municipal governments, organizations, committees, and departmental managers. So these are some of the numbers that the chief and the chief's office have arranged for and or participated in the first, or just under 8 months. So we had the reception at Queen's Park. We met with 5 ministers. We met with 5 MPs or MPPs, 2 provincial opposition leaders. We met with Premier Ford, 5 mayors, the Assembly of First Nations National Chief, the Chiefs of Ontario, Iroquois Caucus, and council has had meet and greets with the Lieutenant Governor, the Brantford City Council, the Office of MPP BOMA. And as shared during budget week, and Chief mentioned some of these stats in the first, well, this from November 7 to April 1. Chief herself had 20 meetings with individual community members who were seeking assistance for, again, personal or private matters, or they just needed somewhere to turn to. She participated in 49 community-related events, 28 meetings and with respect to building relationships, or I like to say building allies with surrounding communities, agencies. I guess the role of the chief's office really is to ensure that the chief is prepared, she's knowledgeable, and is in a position to speak to the many issues of all the different levels of government. I mean, trust me, even with 3 of us, we need to assign leads. It's like any file, right? I mean, you can't possibly remember everything. So our chief staff, we're constantly working on briefing notes, preparing, monitoring legislation, etc. Fourth piece, again, labor intensive, responsible for providing professional administrative support to all senior administrative departments. Not going into details, but The chief's office currently supports the 11 SNEC departments, 10 politically motivated committees, 3 full council committees, and 1 requested individual council members. And the last piece that is cited under responsibilities of the chief is in conjunction with the interim chief executive officer. She's also responsible for ensuring that directors and managers carry out their duties according to council and departmental mandates. I don't need to remind council how busy Nathan is, but chief's office and chief or chief and Nathan, I mean, they can meet up to twice, 3 times daily, depending on the day, because there's a lot happening. The rationale for increasing the number of political support. First and foremost, the position of the Six Nations elected chief is part-time. Notably, the election code is silent on part-time or full-time or hours of work required for any members of council. But this council takes the position that all members of the 59th council are part-time. So a part-time elected chief position necessitates a full complement of administrative and political support staff to ensure that the part-time elected chief is appropriately informed, prepared, and advised of matters that impact our community. Again, at the community, provincial, legislation, nation to nation, and international levels. So the maximum of 2 political support staff for the chief's office has been in place for minimally 18 years, as evidenced in Chapter 16, Item 16.311 of the April 2006 staff policy. As Chief mentioned earlier, our membership has grown significantly. We're about 29,000 members who reside locally on and off the territory and throughout Turtle Island. And it's the responsibility of chief to answer those calls when they ask for help. Also in the 2006, the Consolidated Statement of Operations reported total expenditures of nearly 61.3 million. The last year ending 2023, expenditures approached 122 million, or nearly double that of 2006. It's therefore reasonable, based on the reported growth in expenditures, to presume that the volume of work, the matters of concern, the issues at hand, and the advocacy efforts and work required by the chief's office have also grown significantly, as has the administration. So, like, when the entire organization grows, I mean, it's just kind of, it makes sense to have the staff match the work. Another piece that's really, I guess, significant is the evolution and the use of technology within the current business environment. Sending an email is like that, right? Press of a button, and the person on the other end expects immediate response. So we don't have the benefit of snail mail and waiting for things to come in a week at a time in dribs and drabs. Like they come in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at all hours, and people expect answers. And according to our policy, we have like 3 business days, I believe, to respond to matters. And here it said the work completed to date by the elected chief Sherilyn Hill and the chief's office quite simply could not have been achieved without the current complement of 3 staff. We often must prioritize. I mean, we put in long hours, no doubt about it. We often have to prioritize just due to time constraints. What can we do? What can we not do? What do we have to put off? What do we just have to say, sorry, can't get to it? In a world that expects immediacy, in terms of email. So the last point for the request is, as I mentioned earlier, there's a direct correlation between the capacity and the ability to deliver upon the responsibilities of the chief and the overarching success of the 59th Council. So an increase in the number of staff by 1 really increases the capacity to respond to issues. Full stop. That's it. So, any questions or?
Okay, thank you, Linda. So that was the discussion. Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Audrey.
It's for Nate. And when we discussed this as well, we talked about having a person hired for communication. Has that person been hired yet?
The discussion was about a proposal for that. That has to come back to council, which I wanted to really go through the exercise on Friday. And then have that proposal put back in front of council.
Yeah,
Any other questions or comments? Dale?
I know when we first brought this to council, there was some issues that we were looking at and wanted to resolve and clarify. I know Linda referred to those at the beginning of her speech in relation to process and procedure. I know a lot of the things that Linda went over in relation to what has transpired here with council over the years. I mean, a lot of it's not new, what Linda was telling me, and yeah, maybe it's grown. But I mean, there's a lot of chiefs I've sat with and they've done a lot of work and they've done some of them didn't have no political advisor. They did a lot of their work by themselves. And granted, yes, I agree, things may have grown a bit. But just getting back to process and procedure here. And I know that it talks about a plan that the chief was supposed to bring back, and now you're presenting your plan. And it specifically references band support money, band support funds. And I know when we did our budget, well, 2 months ago, and as part of that process, usually when we approve our budgets, a lot of that, the band support money is always swallowed up within that. So I seen your little note there where you and Nathan had a chat in relation to say that there's band support funds. I kind of doubt that when Jennifer presented our budget to us, that the band support funds were all wrapped up within that budget. So the only way that budget can change is if council changes it. So I didn't see no plan come back from Jennifer or anybody else, how we're gonna pull band support money out and put other money back in to cover up. Cause right now we were projecting an overall deficit of close to, what was it, $10 million. So to reallocate band support money, just based on you and Nathan having a chat, I don't think that can occur. It has to happen with council. And then for that, I would think Jennifer would have to bring a plan back in relation to realigning the budget that this council approved. So granted, I take your notes and in regards to the volume of work, and which has been here for years, but I think realigning the budget is council's decision and realigning band support money, and that's where that's gonna lie with council. So I think part of your plan, chief, is I think that needs to come with Jennifer as well as part of the financial to realign band support funds. Because I'm pretty sure when she did it, it was all part of that and it was approved and we were looking at a deficit at that point in time. So I think that needs to occur.
Cynthia?
Clarify, did I hear correctly in Linda's presentation that the chief's position is part-time?
Yes.
It is part-time. That's news to me. I always understood the chief's position is full-time.
As I referenced Cynthia, it doesn't say anywhere in the election code whether chief or council are part-time. But it's the position of this council that everyone is part-time. So I've never been told any different.
Well, that's all news to me. I always understood the counselors' positions were part-time, but the chief is full-time. And it's been the practice, as far as I know, ever since I can remember, the practice, you said the code doesn't define it, but it's always been the practice that the counselors are part-time and the chief is full-time.
Okay, I can confirm that when they were reviewing the election code in the 58th elected council, that was it's a gray area. And the election code committee confirm that at that time, that since there was no determination, that you all were viewed as part-time. It's not, but it doesn't reflect that in the election code. No, it doesn't. It's silent. That's right, because they didn't know how to put that forward.
Right.
Like
And it's
they did.
further my understanding, well, that's always the way it's been. It may not have been captured by that committee, but that's the way it is. We're all part-time and the chief is full-time. And I further understand the chief draws a salary, like a full-time salary. Whereas we get a honoraria. So whoever drew that conclusion, I totally don't agree with that.
I can confirm that the chief receives an honorarium.
But quite a hefty honoraria, does she not?
Amos?
Yeah, I don't, what is the salary for, or honorarium for a chief? Shirley? It's public knowledge, right?
Yes, I believe it's 103,000.
That's all?
Yes, yes,
That's all?
yes,
We got teachers making more than that in this reserve.
yes.
And the principals are making more than people on this reserve. This is crazy. This is so crazy. We gotta do something. We gotta do something. I know other communities who elected chiefs are making 2 or 3 times that. Or they got 500 people in them coming.
I have Audrey, Helen, Dean, Greg, Hazel.
The same, that Cynthia said is the same understanding I've always had as well. Yeah.
Helen?
Well, I've been here 21 years and the chief has always been full-time since I've been sitting here. That's why they get more money than we do. We do all the work and we get the less money. I know it doesn't say nothing in the election code, but the chief, they used to come in at 9 o'clock and they'd leave at 5. So they were full-time, they were not part-time. And that's why they get, I always figured that's why the chief gets more money than council, because it's a salary and isn't honoraria. So I don't know, whatever. That just makes it sound like Sherilyn's all more busy now because she's full-time instead of part-time.
Dean?
So just reading through this, thank you, Linda, for this. It's just a little interesting coming in as a new counselor to know that nothing has really changed policy-wise since 2006, that there's always been 3 staff. And yet the operation expenditure goes from literally doubled, right? It didn't just increase a little bit, it's doubled. So I don't understand why council is just okay with willingly holding ourselves back. You know, that's what it feels like, is that we're trying to stay back in 2006, and that's something that cannot happen anymore. 2006, we didn't even have internet down here. So, yeah, and that's just completely changed now. So, and nowadays, like Linda said, everything is just so expedited that it's so fast that I'm sure some counselors around here don't even really comprehend how fast the world is nowadays, truly. And if we think $100,000 is a lot, oh my God, then we need to go outside the reserve and take a look at the rent out there, and then we can say maybe $100,000 is nearly just above minimum wage. That's the reality of it. You can believe it, you cannot believe it, but for somebody like myself who doesn't have, let's say, maybe 40 or 50 years of extra time on this earth to build up that wealth over my years, yeah, $100,000 is not a lot of money to grow anything or build anything individually. So, and the fact that it's part-time, yet the work demands full-time is still a little bit interesting to hear too. So the fact, I mean, we have to go through this whole conversation just to get 3 staff is insane to me. It should be more. It's only going to help us. What's the downside? And there is band support funded. Our CFO has a letter attached to it as well that says and states there is. So, thank you.
Greg?
Yeah, just to Linda's point, well, I just had one question too about having an executive assistant and two political staff, which kind of follows what we've been following. There's always this question of process and procedures. And of course, they seem to be cast in stone. As we have grown, these policies and procedures are greater than 10 years old. And in the last 7 or 8 years, our auditors have told us that we've doubled in value and doubled in growth. One of the things is we're not just the administrators of ISK. You know, we fight a lot of political battles. We're out there. We don't just, you know, sit here and accept what's given to us. We're out there as a nation to nation. Other nations have a lot more staff than we have. In terms of, like, historically, I think that we do have to Dean's point, we do have to adapt and change. There has to be some flexibility built in growth. And we have grown and will continue to grow. And as we grow, the responsibilities grow. And that requires more, and a lot of times it would require additional staff. And I think that, yeah, sure, there are policy and procedures, but at the same time, we should be able to have some flexibility as well to adapt to change. Otherwise, we won't change. And we will stay in the same places we always stayed. So my feeling is that we should grow as we grow. And that has to be sometimes with staff and political staff as well. Thank you.
I have Hazel, Melba, Amos, and Cynthia.
This topic is very, it makes you wonder, like, the effort that you have to put into this council. And some have been employees for years. You couldn't get paid, which you could be paid off reserve. Anytime this topic comes up about honoraria or if this council should have got a little bit of an increase since I've been here, it's almost like the paper finds that so terribly wrong that you got a few shekels more because it is shekels. It's more the commitment that comes from everybody. When you're running for council, you know what you're getting into. You're getting into a system, you're a government, and you find out, no, the honorarium is not much, but you are a committed community member that wants to see this place be better. I just feel like this topic of, geez, you want more people, you want more money. Like, yeah, we do need more money. We do need more people because some people are working their butt off. And there's no such thing around here as being paid overtime either. That used to be a factor. And then council didn't like it, so they cut out the overtime. If staff putting in so many hours to try and get something accomplished because the place is busy all over. And it feels to me right now like we all think and say ISK is always in a way of suppressing First Nations. Let's not suppress ourselves. It's I don't know, I just feel really doggone bad when we have employees putting in so doggone many hours, and it's because they have to in order to keep up. But in essence, what we're doing is burning people out. And I know all of us, we have hearts for each other, and none of us want to see anybody hurt or overworked or burnt out. And I'll support this, that if they see fit that they need more help and the chiefs office, so be it. And I've known chiefs from the past. One was my brother. He spent all his time here. I know Sherry's always here. Ava was always here. However, there were some chiefs that weren't always here. And then nothing gets said. So I mean what I'm saying. Let's not be so hard on each other. Thank you.
Are you moving that resolution or? Moved by Hazel, is there seconder? Second by Dean. Now questions. Go ahead, Melba, Amos, and Cynthia.
Well, I think also that we need another staff. We're dealing with many crisis situations as we had tonight. The crisis when it comes to, as you could see, the death of children brings you to tears. Should have never happened. We have housing situations, child welfare, health issues, elder issues. And I want to ask Linda, what is the practice right now of the number of hours that your office, you and the chief and the others are practicing here and on a daily basis?
Chief and I, excuse me, are usually here between 8 and 5, most often earlier than evening meetings, and she works most weekends.
And it was mentioned, they don't get any overtime. Now that is commitment and dedication and caring for each other, no doubt. You'd have to do that in the office and cooperate and certainly have good relationships and caring for one another because I heard you say, Linda, sometimes someone else will pick something up, some other job that you're unable to because you're doing something in another area. So those kind of things are happening, and when it does, that means we need more staff. So I really believe that we've grown, we all know that, and I believe that we should, as Dale had said, allocate some funds, allocate to make this happen, and that's going to be a better working environment, and we won't have burnout. That's what we mentioned today, some areas of burnout now. I also want to mention the chairs of the portfolios. Dale, Dean, everybody else that's a chair. You work lot of hours. I'm getting tired. Just yesterday, is it yesterday? 2:30, 3 o'clock, or was it 5? Close to 5 o'clock. That's council. Today again, was it 2:30 that we finished? And we didn't finish the agenda. And that's what's starting to happen to us. We're not finishing agendas when before it was such a situation. I remember Helen mentioning it. What's on the agenda? We're not telling the community anything. Well, you're certainly working hard on the inside and trying to improve the communication with the community and other departments working with one another. So I think that it's time to look at those hours because when the election code was in place, I asked, well, what are they going to be? This is counselors. Are they going to be part-time or full-time? It looks like a heavy agenda for all the counselors, and they said it's up to council to determine that. That's not their job to determine the number of hours that counselors work. I mentioned I didn't know about the chief. I always thought it was full time. I never seen anything else happen. Thank you.
Amos and Cynthia.
Well, I think we all come here with a certain set of skills, accumulated knowledge, and our purpose to serve this community. We all do that. And I would have a conversation with anybody who thinks that we're less than that. We have a purpose, and that's why we're here. Sometimes we don't learn it until where this, at this age, and we collected some wisdom. Some people get their purpose earlier in life, but we all have a purpose here, and that's why we're here. And as I said, I would challenge anybody to question my purpose for being on this council to serve this community. I've demonstrated that. And we all do that. You know, we bring our skill sets and our accumulated knowledge to this council, and I would suggest we are full-time, even as counselors. So maybe that's the conversation we need to have is, do we move that a little bit, or 3/4 time or whatever? Because I don't mind sharing my accumulated knowledge, and my skill sets, and my purpose to serve. But I didn't know what it was part-time here. I didn't even know when I was running. So it was till I got this document to sign. So I think we all came here with a purpose. We didn't come here to make money. I mean, but the thing is, would we attract younger people who are looking at a career in politics if we did have equitable salaries to be a leader? I can imagine what the city council in Brantford makes and the mayor makes, you know? And when are we gonna privilege our own leadership that we bring here? We always got to compare it with something else, you know? So anyway, so I guess there's two conversations. Do we get more staff? Or do we look at the chief's position as full-time and comparable salary? Those are the two questions I have in front of me right now. And I think we need to have a serious conversation about that, you know? Because we want to keep our leadership here, and we want to attract young people that might want to make a career in politics, right? We're sending them to school, to university, getting their PhDs and masters. They can come home and help us with their purpose to serve. Anyway, I just wanted to say that because I think unless you work off the reserve, then you see what I'm talking about. Anybody in the community who's challenging us on this, they need to go and work off the reserve and look at how they're accommodated and privileged with a salary that's comparable, whether it's unionized or whatever. We've got to start acting like that and making sure that we can keep the best of the best in this community. That's all I wanted to say. Yahweh.
Cynthia?
Oh, sorry. Just to note the presentation, the proposal that was provided, I found it was very thorough and to the point. And I do believe by providing that the requirements of the election code have been followed. And I know that Dale has a question about needs more than concurrence between the CEO and the finance director. So other than that, if that could be delineated, that is for the band support, because often when budgets are put together, and you can see from our audits, there's quite a significant part of the budget every year that's not utilized. So I'm surmising that when the finance director said there is in band support, she would be able to demonstrate this is what we've allocated, but it's not all committed. I'm assuming that's what it is. So I guess would that satisfy folks if Jennifer could provide that? Other than that, I was quite pleased with the proposal. And I do believe that it demonstrates actually the need, and also, as it was pointed out, our growth, it's almost doubled. But that way, we would be in compliance with the policy or the code, election code, I guess it is. But I wonder if you could read, because I have a suggestion, if you could read out the recommendation.
So the recommendation says, whereas The 2023 election code, section 18, item 17 states that should additional staff be required, the elected chief is responsible for forwarding the request to the council for approval based on available band support funding. Whereas a full proposal for additional staff was developed based on the current demands of the chief's office. Whereas it's confirmed that there are available band support funds to cover the additional political support staff. Therefore, be it resolved that SNGREC approve the request for one additional political support staff to the end of 59th elected council.
I have a suggestion for a revision. I don't know where, maybe under the therefore. And it also addresses this item that Linda brought forth. That is part-time. It's taken us, I think, all by surprise. No one ever realized that. Regardless, it has been the practice and the custom that the elected chief is full-time. I'm wondering if we might insert under the, maybe under one of those, therefore it be resolved. Therefore be it resolved as the elected chief is deemed full-time. And that would set that to rest. It would just put in writing, as I'm told it's not in the code anywhere, it would put in writing the position of the council. And it has been the practice and the custom.
Go ahead, Shirley.
Okay, Cynthia, from what I understand, with regards to the election code, we can't make a change on we can make a recommendation, but it cannot be changed without a referendum.
No, but you're saying it's silent. So I'm not suggesting making a change to the election code because it's silent on that matter. I'm saying as a council, we can recognize that. What we're doing by saying, whereas it has been the custom and the practice, it is the elected chief is deemed full-time.
The mover and seconder agree with that?
No, I don't agree with that. That this be that the time to determine whether or not the chief is officially recognized as full-time. No.
So the mover says no. Seconder? Do you agree with that? So the mover didn't agree with Cynthia's request to put in to make myself official, chief's position official. So go ahead, Dean.
I feel that I understand Cynthia, and that is something that should be in place, but I think that we should discuss that at another time. Not tacked on to the support staff proposal that is currently on the floor.
Do you agree? Hazel agrees. So let's go to a motion. Go to a vote. Question moved by Hazel, second by Dean, all in favor. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Huh? You have a question? Question's been called? So I have to vote. So again, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Who's not in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Cynthia? Are you in favor or not?
No.
6 against 5.
Can I have this vote recorded as well?
And a recorded vote.
Yes. Thanks.
So did you get who voted in favor and who didn't? Okay, the motion's moved. Okay, so that ends the open. Thank you for joining us tonight, and have a great night.